Welcome back to Fire Emblem 12 Hard 3 ZPG. Before we get into it, I did a little bit of time traveling because I'm going to use up all my Worm Slayers in Chapter 14, and there are more dragons toward the end of the game. So I went back to my save state for Chapter 11, and instead of 1 Dragon Pike and 1 Worm Slayer, I bought 2 Dragon Pikes and 3 Worm Slayers. And that only set me back 37.50 gold. They're really cheap for some reason. So now I'll have 2 untouched Worm Slayers sitting around for the late game. There's some small changes when I played through the rest of the chapters between there and here. In Chapter 12, I used a Dragon Pike for this kill to save a use of the Lin Sword, and then the extra Dragon Pike purchase allowed me to do this kill setup that I talked about in the Chapter 12 video instead of a Killer Lance crit. Although the dragon rolled extra HP, so I had to use Sirius instead of Sita, which made me sad. In Chapter 13, I used Pala with a Devil Axe for these 2 kills instead of a Silver Lance. And at the start of Chapter 13X, instead of forging nothing, I sold my last large bullion that Rickard's been holding to forge 10 hit onto a Dragon Pike named Vita. I was also slightly more effective at getting staff rank on Yumina, Etzel, and Wendell, so the heal staves will be a little lower than the original timeline, and plus or minus weapon use here or there due to unrouted crits, but not on my Worm Slayers, other than the one on Lin that I saved intentionally, because those are really the weapons that matter. So other than that, the new timeline is the same as my videos. Alright, let's get into Chapter 14. It's a long chapter, so I split the video into 2 halves just to make it more digestible, and it also draws a very clear line between the first half, which is heavily based on creative strategy and precise AI manipulation, which is awesome, while the second half is heavily based on what the fuck and why did they make this, which is not awesome. The roster is pretty standard, except that it's finally time to promote one of my clerics, and promotion gives a nice boost to staff rank, but Militia is already at A rank staffs, while that boost is enough to push Yumina into A rank staffs, and they're basically the same unit, so I just get more value from promoting Yumina, even though Militia definitely deserves it more. I've also got Beck in here, which is a little unusual. Now we're going to get a new unit at the start named Zane, and I am adamantly opposed to the Freelancer class as a concept because it pushes the dominant strategy even further than normal toward making 1 or 2 really overpowered units, because then you have a copy of an overpowered unit. But he is a welcome addition to this particular run. Finally, I'm forging another +3 Might Worm Slayer that I named Eliwood, but with katakana. So this is Ri, U, and then this kana doubles the next consonant, which is the D in Do. And everything I know about katakana was from reading Wikipedia at midnight a couple days ago when I was bored, so that could be completely wrong. Now, there's a thief to our left at the start, along with 2 surprisingly optional dragons, but the thief has the Fortify staff, which heals your entire army, so I can't let that go. I did have to reset until Minerva crit with the Killer Axe, but she can survive combat with both of these dragons because she's such a beast. The Lady Sword has a lot of value on this map, so it seems odd that Zane imitates Leiden here, but keep that in mind, I'll point out why. The 3 dragons here at the entrance don't pull at range, it's another one of those bubbles, and the problem with this map is that almost all of the enemies currently visible indoors are linked, so as soon as you pop the bubble, it is a flood of death. But I came up with a great solution to that problem, we just need to get set up for it. I think it's fitting that Minerva has been holding down the front line for us, since Athena had that role in the prologues, and of course Minerva is just the Roman name for the Greek goddess Athena. According to Wikipedia, Minerva is the goddess of a whole bunch of stuff, including strength, strategy, skill, victory, courage, heroism, all that good stuff. So that's fun. Belf comes in to set up a kill for Minerva, and Marth positions the convoy for Yumina to get the Fortify staff. That thief would have dropped the Warp Staff on hard 2 or below, but this Fortify staff is still going to be critical for completing the chapter, although right now we're just doing a recover. Notice Minerva's hit here, only 79 after the +10 hit forged onto Vita, so that forge is significantly improving our odds over the course of this map. Recall that Lin only has +2 might, and thus requires the Leo Shard to 1-round the dragons at this point, and we're going to lose all of our Star Shards in the second half of the chapter, so I'm going to use up Lin first while I still can. Etzel's going to heal up Zane the old-fashioned way here. Now, in past chapters, I've had to attack something and then rescue to pop a bubble, but fortunately you can also pop this particular bubble by being in range of any of the Dark Mages, including being in range way out here on the outside. And because these Dark Mages can't move out of the way for the dragons, Beck and Julian only have to worry about surviving combat with their respective Dark Mage, which is pretty easy with their Pure Waters giving +7 resistance. Now recall that one of the more sadistic changes from hard 2 to hard 3 is giving dragons 1-2 range instead of just 1. But when you face a superior enemy, you must use their own strength against them. In this case, the fact that dragons can attack at range makes Beck and Julian enticing enough as potential targets that they're going to stupidly hang around here waiting for their chance to kill them across the wall, instead of running it down mid and killing my whole army like they normally would. This is easily my favorite strat in the run so far, because I really am using their quote-unquote advantage against them. Unfortunately, there's no time to celebrate my brilliance just yet. We've got to top up Zane here and take out 2 of these dragons while Lin plays her final performance. had Pala equip the Lady Sword before trading and using Lin to set up a Don-Don-esque break the weapon into the weapon you want to use situation. Ultimately, it was just a little treat for myself, because Leiden could have traded the Lady Sword into her top slot here anyway. We're going to release Julian's group of enemies here so they can start heading toward us, but this baiting strat is incredibly delicate with your positioning. In particular, with these units now toward the middle, Beck's group is going to lose interest in him and head toward the middle before we're ready, so Minerva, Goddess of Victory, is going to help hold their attention. Yumina grabs the Gemini Shard from Etzel to give a little extra oomph to her fortifies, and there will be many of those. This first thief has a killing edge, so you kind of just have to hope on that one. Now watch this third Dark Mage. He moves all the way down because he's choosing Beck over Minerva due to Beck's lower luck, but if Belf had been there instead of Minerva with his 8 luck, that mage would have stayed where he was at the top and Beck wouldn't be able to chip him next turn, so it did have to be Minerva. And one reason to use Beck instead of George for this job is George's higher base crit from higher skill and the sniper class bonus. If any of these counterattacks are crits, it's going to be a reset. Normally, when thieves are carrying droppable treasure, they just try to escape the map, but for whatever reason, they'd rather fight to the death in this chapter, and so our second wave of enemies here is a bunch of thieves. The important thing is to get some counter damage on the Levin Sword Thief, which is why Zane copied Leiden's 4 resistance, and why Pala got barriered on turn 1, making Belf, with his 3 resistance, the target for the Levin Sword Thief. Pala will have to fight another Killing Edge Thief, and you might be thinking I should give her the Lieber Shard for that, but the Thief's just going to target whoever doesn't have the Lieber Shard, so it doesn't matter. Some free staff rank here for Wendell, and another fat fortify. It's worth noting that the Lady Sword has the same might as the Silver Sword, despite being E rank, so Pala is able to post that chunky damage. Beck continues to be the MVP by chipping down these Dark Mages while holding this entire group hostage, who are basically in too deep at this point to go back to the middle, even when Beck is now alone. If you don't care about your turn count, you could hold both of the side packs for as long as you need to. It really is a great strat. I don't have any strong feelings about this loot from these thieves, except for the new Recover Staff, which is very nice. Lady Sword out here continuing to post those Ws. As you can see, by forcing the enemies to come at us in waves instead of all at once, it really just reduces to math. Each wave just works out pretty nicely, assigning the numbers where they need to go. Be careful not to get up against this wall on the left, though, otherwise the Dragon and Dark Mage will attack you. And that includes next turn as well. They'll run backwards if you're up against this wall. I'm not going to use the Rescue Staff in this chapter, but if you were, remember this moment here where Wendell would trade it to Etzel, now that Etzel has room for it. I swear, at least 2 minutes of the total recording for this chapter is just level up screens. There's so many level ups. And so one of the goals here is to try to evenly distribute the damage as much as I can. You can see how beautiful this Fortify is on all 4 of those units. We're going to release Beck's pack of Morons here, but they're still nicely staggered behind the wave we're going to fight on this turn. This wave is much lighter than the others, so we can sort of catch our breath, including delaying Zane's next transformation until next turn, because if I did it this turn, it would wear off a turn too early later on. Wendell's about to get C-rank stabs, meaning he can finally use the Physics Staff as a Sage. He could already use it as a Bishop, but I wanted him to have that extra magic as a Sage for this map. Pala's going to show off that Lady Sword again on this Dark Mage, and Leiden taps into the JP Elliowood. This Fortify looks a little wasteful, but I need both Leiden and Palla to be too healthy for this Dark Mage to kill, and Palla's barrier buff is still doing work by making Minerva with her 3 resistance the most appealing target, and she gets a nice counter with the Heath Lance. This turn now is only possible because of all the work Beck did for us. All of these Dark Mages are now easily killed by pretty much anyone, especially since one-shotting them with the Hawk Claire isn't really feasible anymore. I'm going to seize this opportunity to double up with the Dragon Pikes instead of using a Forged Wormslayer. Etzel regrettably needed Excalibur to kill here, although the crit wasn't necessary. Louise is really on her last legs. That makes me sad. Zane imitates Palla this time to join her in mage killing with the Lady Sword after getting danced. And it kind of feels like we're done, but that's really only the first half of this map. So I'm going to abruptly end the video here, and I'll see you guys in part 2. Thanks for watching.